Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts. I'm joined by Jess Black. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Of course, a very exciting Champions League night yesterday, which I think for at least 45 minutes had the world absolutely on the edge of their seats. And of course, Liverpool reigned through supreme. And we're going to talk Jurgen Klopp a little bit later, but becoming the first manager ever to get into a League Cup, FA Cup and Champions League final in a season. Of course, Premier League manager, that is. I'm sure there might have been a few others that have done it in their own domestic leagues, reached all the finals. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. And hopefully more excitement and more of the same tonight.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I felt this way that the Liverpool Villarreal tie was going to be boring and very exactly what you expected. And obviously, if you look at the score, it does kind of feel like that. But the second leg was really exciting. I think Manchester City and Real Madrid has the capability of being like a classic because these two teams couldn't be any more different. And so hopefully we're in for a treat. But yeah, Villarreal Liverpool was fun yesterday. I have to it felt, even though Arsenal aren't anywhere involved in this, it felt like it was very much like, yeah, we need Unai to go out. At least that's how I felt. I know some of the fan base were like, they wanted Liverpool to go out. They wanted the upset, the underdog story. For me, I needed Unai to go out. I was not here for, Unai is better than Arteta and that whole thing, that whole narrative. So, but I think Unai and Villarreal did such a good job. But when you look at what Liverpool are doing and the depth that they've been able to, accrue over the last two seasons, they're going to be so difficult to beat for any team. And so they're not a team that I would love to come up against in the final. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and do you know what I think is interesting about it all? I really think it's interesting. We're going to talk about the semi-final a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, it did feel a bit Arsenal orientated last night because of that Unai Emery connection. And that's just kind of, I've noticed that more and more in the last 4 or 5 years, football and social media, because the dots are easier to connect. And you're kind of, even if you're just watching it at home by yourself, because of Twitter, because of social media, you're kind of not, because you're interacting with people all the time. And we normally have our fan highlights and reaction videos already set up. And there was 3 or 4 people in the comments last night. Villarreal went 2 up and bang, there was hundreds of people in the comment sections talking to each other, typing stuff. It was absolute madness and we enjoy it. And hopefully more of the same tonight, excitement and all of that. Of course, on the show today, we're going to be talking about Man United and Erik ten Hag's ruthless rebuild with Marcus Rashford's neck being on the chopping block. I want to delve into that in more detail. We're going to talk City, Pep, tonight's semi-final. And we also have got a chat about the situation with Chelsea because obviously we've done some content earlier on today, but I want to get your take. There's been some further developments this afternoon in relation to how much money Todd Bowley's put. For me, it's more I don't even mean it to sound rude, the kind of people not understanding what is meant by Todd Bowley's group pumping in an extra £500 million. I really think people think that means transfer kitty or something, as opposed to owning particular shares within the organization or whatever else. So we're going to delve into all of that. Of course, some transfer news in this as well. But viewers, please make sure you're smashing the like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the Football Terrace. It's very important to us that you do that. And turning on that, I want to say a big thank you as well to the people that have started doing the thank you comments on our pre-recorded videos or after they're live. So a lot of you super chat during shows. You can now do the same thing when shows are uploaded and stuff, just to say thank you and donate towards the Terrace continuation. So thank you to everybody. I think the guys today were Klopp is God. There was a Big Boss account and also Dwayne. They're the ones I saw. So thank you to everybody that's donated to the Terrace that way. It means a great deal to us. But I wanted to start off really with Manchester United because our season's over. Obviously, we had the game against, I keep wanting to say Bournemouth. It wasn't Brentford Monday. Nice win, 3-0. But it was almost, and I enjoyed it. There was just an element of kind of a bittersweet feeling at the end, a little bit of, too much, too little, too late in many ways. But it almost feels like the conversation around rebuilds, players in, players out, is really going to kick on. If I'm being honest, like the word rebuild is one I don't even want to use so much. If I'm being honest, this is just, we've got to sell some players, we've got to buy some players, and I kind of want to get rid of processes and rebuild from my vocabulary because they're nauseating, as it were. Billy T, by
Well,
the
you're
way.
gonna have a rebuild and a nice little project that has a process to it. So there you go.
No, but remember, it's not, you know what I mean? And we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for progress. That is what we're looking for.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah. So it's one of them things. So yeah, from my point of view, I just kind of look at it along the lines of, that's what we need to do. But one of the big sort of stories
Mm.
circulating today was Christopher Nkunku. Of course, with RB Leipzig, brilliant form this year. Paris Saint-Germain and Man United interested in signing him. And this kind of couples with the news that there is a growing sense that Marcus Rashford and Man United might actually benefit from him being sold. So both the player and the club may benefit from him being sold, him being moved on. And then players like Nkunku linked to the club again, big connections with Mr. With the Ralph Ragnick and everything else. I wanted to get your take first on Rashford leaving, because this story kind of, Fabrizio kind of first put it out there and he's considering his future. That was then tempered with, no, he's kind of concentrating. But the story of Rashford leaving doesn't seem to want to go away.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag is going to need some sort of, we've spoken about this before, some sort of sacrificial lamb type, somebody that's a big personality, a long-standing member of the team that they end up getting rid of to set the tone that anybody can go, to kind of eliminate that feeling of player power and, I'll outlast the manager and all this nonsense, that goes around if players don't love the manager, or they feel like they're bigger than the manager, they'll just try to outlast them and make their time horrible. And so I think sometimes a manager coming in, especially if it's a split locker room on that, manager needs to put their foot down and show like anybody can go. And Rashford to me would be maybe a candidate for that. And as long as the form that he's just ended the season on has just been something I've never seen before. Somebody that seasons gone past was one of the most dangerous attackers in the league to just a shell of their former selves. It's hard to watch, but at the same time, he's coming into his prime and he may need a change of scenery. I'm a big advocate of players leaving their comfort zone to find joy somewhere else, because sometimes it's just you come to the end of the road. But equally, I do think that a player like Rashford could be really good under Erik ten Hag and maybe just needs a change in manager and a really good coach, somebody that can coach him to the level that a lot of Man United fans thought that he would be at this point in his career. So I'm split on this one, where I do think that there needs to be some sort of sacrifice, but I also think that Rashford is the type of player that could just need a better coach, somebody that just puts their arm around him and makes him a centerpiece of this rebuild. And because there's still a player there. I'm not going to sit here and say that he was always crap and all of that, because he wasn't. He's just out of really, really out of form. So I think it could go either way. Would I sell Rashford and bring in Nkunku for 25 million more or something like that? Or would I prefer to rehabilitate Rashford and probably get a similar level player? I don't know. I don't know. It just depends on whether or not Rashford feels like Ten Hag can get the best out of him and if Ten Hag is willing to work with him. So, yeah, could go either way.
Of course. And I think on that full report from The Telegraph and Jason Burt, it very much spoke about Maguire and Rashford are players that Ten Hag is already looking at. He's already focusing on. He's already assessing as to whether or not he can turn their careers round. I think that says that he knows they've got ability, but it's all about whether their attitude is right, mentality is correct, can they handle the pressure? And sometimes can you be recovered from a very vulnerable position professionally? And I think that's where Rashford finds himself in this situation where he just hasn't been able to handle a number of things. It's led to the form that he's in. I mean, he can't get in the team over a 62-year-old Juan Mata, who came on and actually balled out and played quite well. And I think it's absolutely right that Rangnick has put in. He says that he hasn't made a dossier and reports. I don't agree. I think there most certainly has been something along those lines. I look at it from the point of view of this needs to be a ruthless rebuild. If it's a rebuild, it needs to be ruthless. It needs to be harsh. It needs to be direct. And I think there does need to be a couple of sacrificial lambs, and almost Man United did this. It's funny, really. I watched a clip from Zlatan Ibrahimovic, an interview where he said that when he came to Man United and people said, we've got to do it the Fergie way, like Fergie did it. He kind of said, with all due respect to Fergie and what he achieved, I want to do it in a new way, our way. And I agree with Zlatan. This isn't about copying Fergie. And Fergie got rid of some stars when they were in the peak of forget being out of form. When they were at the peak of their powers, he moved them on. This isn't about copying him. It's about maintaining the standards. And Jurgen Klopp will do 101 things different to what Fergie did, and vice versa. But their standards and their practices are very much the same on a professional level. And I think someone like Rashford could be a perfect example, with leaks out the dressing room or kind of player PR always being more important than the team, just to say, do you know what? We're not going to try and rebuild you. We're going to move you on and sign somebody new who comes in with that. We don't have to fix the mindset. The mindset's ready to go from day one. And it may not be Rashford. It might be Maguire that we do it to. Of course, Pogba's moving on. Little things like Ten Hag coming in and saying, you know what, Pogba, before you even decide, he might not have made his mind up. We're pulling that offer off the table. We're moving on. You know, Anthony Martial's on loan. Do you know what? I don't even want to bring him back. Highly talented, but I think he needs to go elsewhere. We need a few of these moves to not unrest the other way. I think it will galvanize the dressing room. It makes people think, do you know what? We really need to buck our ideas up. Twisted Bubba here says, is Rashford unprofessional? What's your take on it? Do you think he's been unprofessional as of late?
It's so hard to say, because I think when you're looking at somebody that's unprofessional, I feel like that's more due to like how they train and how they act in the dressing room and things like that. It's hard to tell when they're playing games because it could just be really bad form. But I have to say, you can watch some of his performances and maybe think that he's not giving 110%, and maybe it's not just form. The running's not there. The body language isn't there. And a lot of people don't like reading into body language, but I feel like you have to use it. You know, you have to look at it and say like, okay, it looks different.
Sorry to interject, but you're right. People don't, but they only don't like looking at body language when it's a player they like, whose body language he's being.
It's not good. Yeah. That's what I think about. Like, I can see why some Manchester United fans are looking at his performances and saying, you know what, he's not giving 110% for the shirt. He's not playing for the badge. He's not playing for his teammates. But I can also see, if you like Rashford, you can look at that and just say, you know what, he's been treated poorly. He hasn't been coached right. And he's just out of form like the rest of the team. You know, it could go either way. If I had to guess, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, it started off as form and now is dipped into, you know what, I'm not giving 110%. And I think when you're doing that, that's unprofessional.
I agree. I think it's morphed into that with a lot of players. Do I think some of them have down tools? Yes. Do I think a lot of them have leaked information at certain times to the press? Yes. We saw Jesse Lingard, who's leaving. His brother put out a post that, you know, slamming Man United for not bringing his brother on. And it's almost like, I hold players accountable for this. And there's almost this element of, you know what, if I had a really tough day, when I worked at Barclays, I had a really tough day at work and told my brother about it, and he'd been on the internet and slagged them off, I'd be horrified. There's a professional standard to things where it's, if you want to speak to Man United about how you feel your brother's agreed, you go and speak to them, but you keep that off the table. The empowerment that so many footballers or their families now feel to continuously go on the internet and, you know, say their piece or twist the truth or their truth, as people talk about it these days, about situations is wrong. And it's almost, you know, show an air of decorum, show an air of professionalism, show an air of like just a little bit of, not even integrity, that's what I'm looking for here, a little bit of like pride in yourself to not embarrass yourself by going public in that way. And I think that's the thing. Even if they're right, you still look. That's the thing with these things. Even when Lingard, I kind of get where Lingard's brother's coming from. I kind of get why Rashford would go out and push the PR to show, I am training hard. But it just makes you look bad. Generally in life, even when you're right, you look bad. And I've seen this on the social media scene where someone's been, I know one YouTube content creator says something about another YouTube content creator, and it's a lie or a variation of the truth. And the guy comes out and defends himself, or the girl comes out and defends themselves, and they end up looking worse for doing it, because then they're airing more dirty linen in public. And it's just like, oh, guys, it's messy. You know, keep it behind the scenes, as it were. So I kind of get that. Unprofessionals are probably a little, it's probably right in many ways. I heard Terry Rashford's going to your dad's club. I read more Arsenal, to be fair, but there's a super chat here from Jesus Christ, who says, honest question, what makes you think the Glazers are going to change their way? Why would he change his way when the current Disneyland business model works? And look, I know you've seen some of my content this last week. I got cooked by Arsenal fans for moaning about the Ragnick getting the Austria job. And I said, well, I was annoyed. And they're like, oh, but it was only ever going to be a part-time consultant. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Because when the news first broke that he was doing it part-time 6 days a month, we were all raging. We all thought it was going to be that he was going to be called a consultant, but work pretty much full-time upstairs, because instead of giving him the permanent job, it was just a way of kind of shoehorning him into that kind of role. Then the fact where now it looks like we're not getting Paul Mitchell, which I know all rivals are happy about. As much as this rebuild, this ruthless rebuild sounds good, Jesus Christ, with the comment here, you are spot on that none of this matters unless major changes behind the scenes are made and or we change the way we operate. So getting rid of Rashford could be, and Maguire could be a great call. Some people will just like it because they don't like the ability of those players. But at the same time, what it can also be is very much a case of attitude, making a statement, setting a new precedent for how we want people to behave. If we don't stay the course on that, Jesus Christ, and I've got to refer to you as your username as opposed to what your real name is. I'm sure your name isn't Jesus Christ or whatever it may be, but we have to, because that's more important than a ruthless rebuild. That is more important than selling Rashford and buying Nkunku. And we're linked to some really talented players, because one of the other names that was out there that I wanted to bring up today, Ruben Neves, linked to Man United and to Arsenal. Now it kind of appears that it could be Barcelona that come in and get him. Is that a big loss to the Premier League, in your opinion?
I don't care about the Premier League. What do you mean?
Right, Arsenal.
A big loss. Like, it's not a big loss for the league. I mean, I don't know how much I believe these types of reports. Okay, so let's just. I don't know if I see him in a Barcelona shirt. I mean, do you see the players that they have playing in their midfield right now? They have Frankie de Jong and Pedri, and I don't know if I really see him in that midfield. Like, I don't. So I don't know what the validity or the reality of these reports are. I mean, it's very similar to all of a sudden Tielemans is more interested in going to Spain than staying in the Premier League and going to Arsenal or Manchester United. You know, all the reports are kind of the same. But I do think that Ruben Neves is the type of player that I could easily see slotting into Manchester United's midfield. I think Arsenal needs something different than that, but I still think he's quality, not as quality as you think he is. I know you think he's the best thing since sliced bread. I kind of put him a couple, rungs below that, but I do think that he's somebody that would vastly improve Manchester United's midfield. And it's not just any old player, because I know, like, at this point, people are really down on the midfield for Manchester United. He'd be perfect. And he knows Ronaldo. He knows Bruno. And like you guys saw with Mata in midfield, it gave Bruno Fernandes the kind of ability to be more of just the creative, attacking midfielder that he is. And so I think Ruben Neves would do something quite similar in that Manchester United midfield. And so he's like the perfect signing, I think, for Manchester United more than Arsenal. But yeah, I still see him staying in the Premier League. I think the Premier League is where Wolves would be able to get the most money for him as well. And he is somebody that could play for a top 6 club. So, yeah, I think Manchester United could get that done. If that's who Erik ten Hag wants. Things change now that there's a new manager.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I've always, I think last summer, I remember you, me, Grizz Khan, we were kind of talking on socials about him versus Basuma. Now, I think Basuma is amazing, by the way. I think Ruben Neves is different, not as athletic, not as quick across the ground. I would say a better dictator of play, though, in terms of controlling tempo of the game. And I think Ruben Neves, just like Jota needed to go to a better football club, better players around him, better manager, and you've seen his qualities come through. Now, Ruben Diaz has joined and just blown him out the water. Mane has gone to another level, going central. That's the nature of the beast, at being at one of the top clubs. You have to continually improve and get better. Ruben Neves needs that move. Barca are looking at him, United, Arsenal. He needs to go to a bigger, better, harder club. And although there are times where Wolves actually have been better than Man United and Arsenal in recent years, someone like him, I think, could help elevate. He's better than any midfielder Man United have got, with Paul Pogba leaving. And I'm talking that central midfielder that's going to dictate the play. And we saw, I know you mentioned, just I had to go and close the door. Just as you mentioned, when Juan Mata was playing on Monday with Bruno in the team, and Juan Mata was controlling the tempo, and Bruno's job was to be further up the field, that final piece of the jigsaw, we suddenly saw again the did I say Ruben Diaz? I meant, because I was thinking Ruben Neves. Sorry, Luis Diaz. Sorry, someone's corrected me. We saw Bruno Fernandes just look better, in terms of Bruno Fernandes isn't the dictator of play. He isn't someone that's going to sit deep and do what Thiago does, what Michael Carrick did, what Paul Scholes did. What Juan Mata's a more advanced player, but he's just technically different, better at certain things on the ball. And this is one thing that Man United have got to get right, and Arsenal, still improving in, is those square pegs round holes. Don't have someone that's a goal-scoring midfielder trying to dictate the play. Don't have somebody that's a dictator of play playing out wide on the wing because you've got to fill that position. Don't have someone who's a non-ball playing centre-back trying to play out from the back. These don't try and play offensive attacking wingers with wingers that can't attack. These are the things that I think Ten Hag will get right. There is a comment, though, that came through from Lorenzo. It says, Terry, I see a lot of Man United fans on social media thinking United will be back next season. I mean, that's ridiculous, don't you guys think? Yeah.
What do you think, Terry? What do you think about that?
Look. I have to be really blunt about it. Anyone who thinks we're going to be, my version of back is, at the very least, it's challenging for the league title, being very competitive in the Champions League. I don't see that happening next year. I really don't. Could we be on the right track over the course of the next 12 months? Yes. That means Ten Hag being the right appointment, the right players in, the right players out year one, a behavioural and cultural system re-established quickly and firmly on, but the running of the club behind the scenes, the feeling, and the players will notice it when they come back. We've all worked for companies, for organisations and businesses, been at schools or universities where something that's broken is removed, and you come back and go, oh, feels different. Or I remember having 2 weeks off work once, and they changed almost the whole management team in a branch of Barclays I worked in. I came back, and I wasn't even part of the direct branch team. I was part of the business unit that kind of worked upstairs. But you came in and there was a new mood. You could feel it in the air. And that's what's going to be key for Manchester United. And if you get that part right, then United could be on their way to being quote unquote back. But to make that statement now, any United fan that thinks just employing Ten Hag is going to be the reason we get there, you are seriously deluding yourselves.
Also, just going back to the Ruben Neves thing, if I had to give my early predictions of where he ends up, I think he ends up at Manchester United, and I think Tielemans ends up at Arsenal. I think those two men. I think that makes
you're not big
a
on
lot of sense.
You're not big on Tielemans, though, are you? You're not a fan.
No,
is that right?
Not really. Not really. But hey, this is Arteta's funeral. Like, you know what I mean? The reports that had come out was like Arteta was concerned about his defensive ability. I'm like, hell yeah, the guy can't defend for his life. But in that left central midfield, I still think he would be really good for us. We need one more midfielder. So those are my early predictions. I think that makes a lot of sense.
No, I hear you on that completely. Ali here says Terry, Tchouaméni, Basuma, Neves, or Tillemans. I'll put them in order from my first choice to last choice. I would go Tchouaméni, Basuma, Neves, Tillemans. I'd go in that order, but I would take.
So in the exact same order that it is right there.
I didn't even realize that. But
yeah.
I don't differentiate. Again, Basuma and Tchouaméni, I think I'd put slightly in front of Neves, but I'm splitting hairs. They're different type of players. That's what I would say. By the way, United almost need 2 of that 4. You know what United, because of the prices as well. Like Neves looks like he's available for £40 million. Like Basuma, I know there's these things overarching with Basuma. But I look at him, he's a 40-50 million pound player. You think for 90 million you could sign Neves and Basuma. That is brilliant business, where it might cost you 80 million just to sign Tchouaméni. And is Tchouaméni worth those 2 players combined? That's where I think Man United need to be sensible this summer. And I know we always want to go for that 80-90 million pound player because it's a statement. But actually, sometimes you look at Liverpool's attack, 27 million for Mane, 30 million for Salah, 55 million or so for Diaz. Like those 3 players combined are only slightly more expensive than what we paid for the likes of Pogba. And there is great business you can do out there for the right, and we need to be mindful of that because we need 5-6 players this summer, you know,
and to hit the ground running as well, because like it's, even though you guys are rebuilding, there's still going to be standards there, right? And just not being ready to go at the beginning of the season could cost you top 4. So you might want to look at Premier League proven players. I know people don't like that. They feel like being Premier League proven is overrated. But I think there is something to it where you could start off really quickly, where sometimes when you have players that need to adapt, especially in like new systems, new manager, new this, new that, it could stunt you a little bit in the beginning. So it'll be interesting to see where Neves, Tielemans, Basuma, and maybe even Declan Rice end up going, because they're the top midfielders in the league outside of, the top 6-ish, and I think they all, except for maybe Declan Rice, make a move.
Yeah. No doubt about it. We had another comment here. Obviously, we were talking a little bit about the Nkunku deal a little earlier with PSG and Man United. Looking at him, could he join Arsenal? Yes. One thing I would say, Arsenal getting Champions League football makes it even easier. But Arsenal Football Club or Arsenal Football Club, I still think you can sign, if you'd have spent the money this summer. And I know things have gone okay in particular areas, but I remember when you were linked to James Maddison, everyone kind of laughed at it. Lautaro Martinez, everybody laughed. Those players were willing to join Arsenal, and you didn't have any European football. So for me, yeah, of course Arsenal can, but it's about being willing to spend the money. You're looking at about 75 mil plus big salary. But yeah, of course it's plausible. I don't see why Arsenal couldn't do it.
It's not that I think we could. We're in the market for very similar players that Manchester United can get, but there's only like a certain level that we can't touch. But financially, we can afford most players. Everybody pays in installments. We have no wages anymore. Remember January, we've lowered the wage bill. So, and you don't lower the wage bill to keep it there. You do that so that you can bring in bigger players. But the Nkunku thing, just spending 75 million on one player, I could see us doing it, but at the same time, it's like we need surgery again. We need to build again. So I could see him going to Manchester United if Rashford were to leave. I don't think that's necessarily a player that we're going to be looking at. But yeah, I think we could get him if we wanted him, and we had Champions League.
No, I get that. Joshua here says Lingard's brother talks about respect, yet his brother leaks stuff to the media for long, with him posting West Ham pictures and everything else. Of course, and I've always said this before. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When people's family members do these things, agents do these things, I nearly always believe it's with authority from the player, because my brother wouldn't go on the internet now and write something about companies I'm working with, my partners, my anything. He would never do that without speaking to me first. Even if he thought he was defending me, he'd go, "Tell, I'm going to do this. What do you think?" That's just the way people work and operate. But there we go. Nkunku is not available until 2023 when he's release clause kicks in. Tchouaméni will only go to a club with Champions League football. The Tchouaméni, yeah, he's only going to a club. Again, we say that he'll only go to a club with Champions League football. Fans, people don't like hearing it, but Man United are a different beast. We're Man United Football Club. We're huge. We're gargantuan. We can attract without it. If the management structure and future looks bright, and it's hard to tell year one if it is, but you've got to remember, Erik ten Hag excites people, and it's almost that footballers have got this. There's sometimes this little buzz of joining it at the grassroots level. You know, all those Liverpool players that joined the early Klopp stages, the way they're thought about now by those Liverpool fans is it's a thing of beauty. It's a legacy thing, because you joined. It's very easy to join Liverpool now when they're brilliant. It's very easy to go, okay, I know I've got options elsewhere, but Liverpool are at the top of the mountain. I'm going to join Liverpool right now. It's a very easy decision. It was a lot harder 4 or 5 years ago, a lot harder. And fans are very aware of this. And for a lot of football players, legacy, as much as the money's important and trophies, gaining a legacy in the game is absolutely massive. But yeah, look, it's going to be hard to get someone like Tchouaméni away from the Real Madrids and other Champions League teams. Liverpool are looking at him now as well. And if Man United and Liverpool go toe to toe for a player, barring money, absolutely zero chance of us beating. And by the way, I don't want us to just go, right, I know Liverpool have offered you 100 grand. There's 350 grand a week to join us, because that's not worked in 9 years. So let's steer away from that. Except Bruno, the whole Man United team needs to be changed, and then adapting to Ten Hag's style. It will take at least 3 seasons to be competitive with Pep and Klopp. It could take that long to compete with Pep and Klopp. There's no doubt. So I don't disagree with that one. Viewers, make sure you're smashing that like button. Let's get this past 300 likes while we're live on the air. Please share this link across your social media platforms as well. So your Twitter feeds, encourage your followers to come and watch. Just stick it into your group chats as well. It means a lot to us. Also, what I'd love you guys to make sure you're doing is following our Clips account. KJ's working very hard on that now. I'm going to post the link actually in the comment section and pin it. Make sure you're subscribing. Lots of great links every single day that are going up. And the growth over there in the past week has been amazing. So thank you to everyone that's supporting the Clips channel as well. I want to talk about. We are going to talk Chelsea a little bit later on in the show. So if you're here to speak Chelsea, could they go into administration? We're going to break that down a little bit later on this podcast for you. So stay with us for that. But last night we saw Jurgen Klopp become the first manager in English football history to reach the Champions League, FA Cup, and League Cup final in one season. Premier League manager, that is, remains in contention for an unprecedented quadruple. Going up tonight, not going for a quad, not going for a treble. Not going for the quad, not going for the treble. Could still win can't win anything. A treble can only win a double now. Pep, but going up tonight is Pep Guardiola. You know, his nemesis in terms of this kind of rivalry that's going on, the Pep versus Klopp era. How do you think Pep and City are going to do tonight? Because are they going to overthink it? Are they going to succumb to the pressure? Like, what's your thoughts on the game?
I think this is one that could go either way still. Like, as much as I want to say, like, definitively that I think Manchester City will go through because of just how well coached they are, the world-class players that they have in their team, the depth in the squad, the way that they click when they're clicking, they are so hard to beat. But as we kind of saw in the first leg, I do think the nerves kind of got to them. And you could see that there was just a little bit of that, oh my gosh, here we are again type of thing. And if you leave Real Madrid in the competition long enough, they tend to piecemeal something together to get things over the line. And I think Manchester City did the same thing as like Chelsea did and PSG did, and, you know, just kept them lingering around, didn't kill them off. And Real Madrid aren't particularly good defensively. They're not particularly like a great team in terms of like some of the players that they have that are still coming out there on the pitch. I'm like, wow, this guy's still here, like Nacho and Carvajal and these guys. But they have certain players that know what they're doing. I think Modric and Benzema have 8 Champions Leagues between them. So Manchester City, their nerves are the only thing that I think would stop them from going through, but we've seen those nerves, really hurt them. And so I don't even know if it's just Pep overthinking. I don't think he overthought much in that last leg, because I mean, what was he going to do at right back beyond putting a center back there? He didn't have any other options. So it's not like he overthought it. It just looked like the team just had some nerves. They weren't defensively solid like they usually are. So it could go either way. I just feel like Manchester City may have let Real Madrid in too much. Like I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about Manchester City right now. But the game could start. They could go 2-0 up and pass around Real Madrid for 80 minutes, and then the game could be done. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't think Pep really overthought it too much. I didn't see him do much wrong, except for his players just seemed nervous, and they let Real Madrid get them into an open match. And once it was open, it just wasn't the Manchester City we're used to seeing.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And for me, City are a better team on paper, quality of play. I think their squad from top to bottom, barring Benzema, Modric could get into the City team, in my opinion, even now. Some would argue Vinny Jr. could, but you start going through the rest of that team, and it is City. If you need a combined 11, they've got the better manager. This is where I'm in love with football, because tonight's all about mentality. It's all about want. It's all about concentration and belief. Knowing you can do it, knowing you can achieve it. This City team, in my opinion, doesn't believe that they can do it, or doesn't believe 100% they can do it. This Real Madrid team, a lot of this squad have won it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times a lady. They know what it's about. There's people around the club, from the guy making cups of tea to some of the ladies on the board, the fans. They've been here so many. It's like Liverpool in Europe. When Liverpool have got a good to world-class team, you don't write them off in Europe. With Real Madrid, there's always that chance. And I think earlier on, I think it was easy to knock them out earlier on in the campaign. Now they're in a semi-final, and they're a goal or 2 away from making another final. Liverpool in their 10th final. I don't know how many Real Madrid have been in. They've won 13. I'm going to hazard a guess they've been in, 15 plus. It could be even more. The club understands it. And tonight forget your ability will shine through tonight, but it will shine through the most on the team that has the best mentality. I wouldn't look beyond Benzema destroying another team, as he's done sort of 3 rounds running. I can't look beyond that. I cannot write Real Madrid off when they are at home, and it may not be the Santiago Bernabeu, but it's the next best thing. The fans will be raucous and noisy. The players will feel it, and we saw that the other day. Pep did nothing wrong. He did absolutely nothing wrong at all when it came to the situation with the game last week. It was his team were in the ascendancy. His team was scoring the goals. His team were doing the right thing. And then bang, there's just these little moments of lacks of concentration, lacks of belief. And as I said, someone here says this anti-City agenda on this channel it's not an anti-City agenda. You're the better team. But tonight isn't about being better. It's about being stronger, mentally resolute. Because if you hold it together with belief, with a winning mentality, with a confidence in you, Real Madrid can't beat you. They can't, because you are better. But that isn't how sports works. And it's never been how sport works, in my opinion. So for me,
I don't think Man City will. Oh, go ahead. I don't think Man City will be as open. They just, you can't let Real Madrid get you into an open game. You just can't. And Man City is all about control, controlling everything. They want to get a couple of goals and then pass you to death. And they weren't able to do that. They got ahead in that game and they didn't go back into what they know. And so I'm thinking Pep is probably telling them, like, we just need to play our game. If they play their game to the best of their ability, they will go through. And with Kyle Walker being back, I'm looking at one of the City accounts is saying that he's back. John Stones is out, but Kyle Walker is in. That should give them some comfort on that right-hand side, because that was where Vinny Jr. was getting a lot of his joy. And I think unless Kyle Walker isn't 100%, Kyle Walker versus Vinny Jr. is much, much, much better than Vinny Jr. versus Fernandinho / Stones. So as long as Man City play their game, they'll go through. The reason why I think people don't feel as confident about it is because of what Real Madrid has done to other good teams in this competition. Even with backs against the wall, with the players that they have and the experience that they have, and the fact that we've never when you see City go out and they're not really playing their game, you know that something is wrong. So that's the only reason why. But I still, if I have to put money on it, I would say Man City goes through. I just feel not 100% confident, if that makes sense, where I was before the tie even started.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think for me, if I'm putting a bet down tonight, it's on Man City, because I think they're the better team, but they have to maintain their composure. We've seen this City team get knocked out by Lyon. I know it was only one leg, but they've gone out to Lyon. We've seen them get to a final against Chelsea and not lay a glove. They were beaten by, yes, some very young and exciting players, Fabinho and Mbappe in that Monaco team. But again, City on the day and on paper were better, and they weren't able to deliver. And I think that this is why I'm in every sport that I watch and consume. Nearly every sports person that I've listened to is. They always speak about the mentality and the mindset, from darts players to, they'll talk, I practice a lot, but how do you practice 8 hours a day? I've got the mindset for it. Even when they speak about their ability, well, how are you able to do that? Mindset, concentration, dedication, putting in those hard yards. And that's what's going to be important tonight. As a comment here, it says, bottle a 1-goal lead against Real Madrid, Kings of Europe. No one said nothing. Tuchel bottled it. You've got to remember, though, about this. Tuchel and Chelsea won the trophy already. When you've won the trophy twice in your history, when you've got to 2 finals running and bettered yourself as a manager, when you've only been able to buy one player and add that into your squad since you've been at the football club in an 18-month period, it isn't fair to label Thomas Tuchel a bottle job. He's won it. Man, I'm not calling, by the way, I've never called Pep Guardiola a bottle job. I think that he has tinkered his team at times and damaged it. Manchester City are not quite there yet in believing in themselves as European powerhouses. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised with Pep there, with the money they spend. If they win the Champions League this year, don't be surprised if over the next 6 years you don't see City pick up 1 or 2 more. They're that good. You look at this Liverpool team, because the club believes, because Klopp believes. Klopp's now in his 4th Champions League final. Only 2 or 3 other managers in, I think, the history of football have even done that. I read something today that isn't like my I haven't got this huge knowledge of these things, but I've read it today in a tweet. Sorry, someone sent me a DM about something from TalkSport, and I started reading that when I was talking. I shouldn't have done. Sorry. Thanks, Curran. I appreciate it. It's one of those things for me where City win it. You look at Liverpool; they're in their full final. It's Klopp's sort of third with this Liverpool team. Could be their second time they win it. And where City and Liverpool have got this advantage that they've got to take hold of. And again, Liverpool and City fans are going to be angry about what I'm about to say, but bear with me. Sometimes you become the best team in Europe, in the world, when there's only 1 or 2 other really good teams. And right now there's City, and I think then there's a big gap in everybody else. Sometimes you can be unlucky. So how unlucky would have Klopp and Liverpool have been if their team was this good, but when Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and Barcelona were at the peak of their powers as well? It can be harder to reach the finals and harder to win them. But that's why you've got to utilize those moments, because history doesn't care about that. History doesn't go, right, I know Man United won a treble, but how good were these 6 teams back then? How good were these teams in the league? How good were these teams in the? It's no, they won a treble. Liverpool won they won 4 Champions Leagues, I think, before I was born. are we going back and rewriting history? Right, we have to intrinsically go through each of those years, all the circumstances, the rule changes. No, Liverpool had 4. They then had 5, they then have 6, and they might have 7. And that's why Man City have got to strike now, because if they don't do it now, we don't know in 2 years' time how good Madrid, Barcelona, Juve, Bayern Munich, I'm not going to mention any other English, how good they're going to be. You could then go to a point where, oh my God, it's even harder now, because right now their only real competition is Liverpool. And Liverpool are amazing, by the way. It's one team. You could end up in a position how United were in 1999, how it was only 3 or 4 years ago when Real Madrid were at the peak of their powers, where we all sit there at the start of the season and go, those 3 or 4 teams. This has been one of the first seasons ever where at the start of the campaign, I'm like, I don't see anyone but Liverpool or City winning it. Or Chelsea. I didn't even see Chelsea doing it, because retaining it is so hard. It makes the probability harder. And listen, City have got to do it and do it soon, because it's going to be a lot harder again in a couple of years' time because of the cycles of football. But they need to grow that winning taste, that winning taste for it.
Yeah, and like you said, once they do it, they'll be able to replicate that. Maybe not the season right after, but they need to know that they can do it. And this team is more than capable of winning the Champions League. It's just about maybe getting over that mental barrier. And if they get it, they're going to have to beat Liverpool for it. So nobody will sit there and say, well, you didn't play this team, you didn't play that team. You had to beat probably the next best team in the world. So I think Man City have everything in their locker to do it. I don't want any Man City fans to feel like, everybody's coming for them. I still think you're favorites. I still think you'll go through if I had to put money on it. But you can't really sit there and say that even you're not concerned about the fact that Real Madrid just have seemed to be able to get things over the line without having world-class players at every single position. There's something with that Real Madrid team that's just insane right now. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but Man City more than good enough to do it.
Without a doubt. I want your thoughts, people. Score predictions tonight in the live comment section would be absolutely amazing. John here with a chat earlier on today says, Terry, have you had a bet on Liverpool doing the quad? I nearly did a few weeks ago, because my view was if I win some money from it, it will take the sting out. And it was around 16-1. It's now dropped to as low as, with some bookmakers, as 6-1 to win the quadruple with the likes of Bet Victor, Bet365, Paddy Power. 6-1. That's really not bad odds. So if you do have a little sensible flight, a little £10 wins you 60 quid plus your stake back. But yeah, I haven't myself. I don't want to do anything to will it into existence. Terry, I got it at 66-1. Wow. I wonder, there must be a Liverpool fan, because these bets always exist, who at the start of the season, when it was probably 10,000-1, stuck a few pounds on it. I bet he's sitting there thinking, I wish I stuck 100 quid, 200 quid on it now. There'll be someone like that. I always tell this story of this. I had a DVD, which was like a video, probably. It was so old. The Man United treble year, and he interviewed this fan, and he put a bet on in the summer, a double bet on France to win the World Cup in '98, and then Man United to win the treble the following year. And he got stupid odds, like 2,000, 3,000-1 it was, and he stuck like £100 on it. So it was like a 20-30 grand return. And this was when there was no apps, and it was just all betting slips from the shop. And he was at the final, Man United fan, a few minutes to go, 1-0 down. And he screwed his betting slip up and he threw it on the floor. The equalizer came. He spent a minute or so scrounging around for the floor. And the way he tells the story is beautiful. He says he found the ticket, he opened it. Yes, I've got it. And then heard another cheer, and Man United won, and he won the 2030. And by the way he was telling the story, you just know it was true. It was too great for it not to be the case. And I bet you there is a Liverpool fan somewhere sitting there with a big ticket of where they might be winning 20, 30, 40 grand if Liverpool pull it off, who'll be watching.
So somebody in the comments says like somebody did it at the beginning of the season. So like, yeah, there probably is somebody sitting there. Yeah.
There's always those kind of bets, It's like the person that put like £100 on Leicester winning the league when no one, what a waste of £100. I think he won like 100 grand, And
that's amazing.
But you get these stories. You kind of get these. But there was loads of stories on that 99 night. Like Sir George Best, not Sir George. Sir George Best left the. I don't think he was a Sir, but I call him Sir George. Bestie left the stadium at 1-0 and got in the car, they put music on. They got back to the hotel when Man United had won the Champions League. He left because he couldn't bear to see him having not won it. And he literally, and that's why sometimes, it's like last night, a few people going, oh, I'm not going to watch the Liverpool game because they're through. Nothing historic happened in the end, or nothing dramatic in the end. It was, but if you don't watch the games, you miss history. And that's the bit for me. I remember when Conor McGregor was fighting Mayweather, I couldn't bring myself to not watch it, because if by some miracle McGregor knocked him out or beat him, imagine sleeping through that. You have to live these sporting moments. You really, really do. But we've got the score predictions in. Most people predicting a Man City win. A few people predicting a Benny boy, Big Ben's, to go out there and do his thing. But we want your take on that, our people. Make sure like buttons are being smashed as well. Any super chats or any questions you've got for Jess or I, please feel free to send them in. Now, of course, this week's been a crazy one, with Roman Abramovich seemingly asking for his money back, £1.6 billion. He or the sister company is asking for the money. It's all, being put out in different ways. The license to continue operating under the exceptions to Abramovich's blanket sanctions expires in eight days before the Premier League meets to agree and sign off for the clubs for the 2022-2023 campaign. And there's a lot that's circulating around this at the minute, Jess, in terms of, will Todd Bowley's group buy it? Will they be lumbered with debt? Will they be even able to operate? Will Roman Abramovich dig his heels in and say, no, I want my money back, or at least want the debt paid off and the money sitting in the bank account of the sister company until I'm legally allowed it? Like, it feels like this situation was almost resolved, and now there's another big spanner being thrown into the works.
Yeah, it just feels like there's always something. And I could have sworn Chelsea were supposed to have been purchased like a month ago. Like, this was supposed to have been taken care of. And over the last couple of weeks, it's been, this person is the favored buyer. This person is favored buyer. Ricketts goes away. Serena Williams and Lewis Hamilton are involved. Like, more people jumping into the ring. But this just seems very convoluted and complicated, and to the point now where it's like, I know there's a lot of Chelsea fans that just want it done because they know, I think time is running out. What is it, like 25 days or so until the license expires or something? So like, they need to get this done. Personally, like, I don't get into like the money part. That's like so more your area of expertise. I'm just looking at it and thinking, what a mess. And they need to get things sorted before it gets to the point where they can't operate. I still think they'll get it done before then, but maybe they do have debt. Maybe Abramovich does make it more difficult. So I think Chelsea fans have to look at this and remember that there was a couple of months, or when this first came out, that everything would just be fine and everything's just going to run as normal. It's probably not. This doesn't look as straightforward as people maybe originally thought. And so, is Abramovich this great and wonderful guy that maybe people thought he was? He was when he was there, but he still is a businessman and wants his money back. And at the end of the day, this is all about money, people getting their investments taken care of, people wanting a piece of Chelsea Football Club. So ask the right questions and remember that it's a business. And so when money is involved, things get messed up. And so I don't know. It's just looking like such a convoluted situation that if it doesn't get resolved in the next week or so, who knows what'll happen. I still think they'll be operating, but I don't think things will be the same. I think all indicators are saying now that this is going to be much, much different.
I think there's a few things here. So the first point is, are Chelsea going to hit administration and go out of business? In my opinion, absolutely not. I can't see that happening. I don't see it happening. Is it a possibility? Yes. And some journalists will always report on the worst case scenario, and it should be something that's taken seriously. There's another report that I put up on the screen that's come out from the Telegraph today that's essentially said that sources close to Roman say that it's never been his intention to leave the government with the impression that he wants to the loan repaid to himself. But the dispute seems to surround whether the UK can legally freeze the loan. So whether it's actually legal for the UK to say Chelsea don't have to pay that loan back. How do they kind of wipe that off? I don't really buy into that either, if I'm being absolutely honest, because if it was said that the loan would be paid back, the loan can never be written off. Like when you're buying this money's still owed. The only way it can be written off is if that sister company like writes the debt off, and I don't quite know how that works from in terms of, there's talk about converting it into equity, which means that the sister company would then own shares in the new club. The UK government seems to be happy with that, but of course then it's, well, that company's owned by Roman Abramovich and now they own big shares in Chelsea. Is he still in some way or shape or form a proxy owner? We don't know. Where I think I would be more concerned as a Chelsea fan is around the overall structure of everything. It's been ignored the whole time. These are investment companies that are getting involved. I read this story just yesterday that Sky News have learned that the part owner, Todd Boehly and associates, will inject the majority of the additional $500 million demanded by Roman Abramovich, resulting in a smaller stake from Clear Lake Capital. Now, it's how these things are even explained. I see Chelsea fans on socials going, oh, look, getting a big injection. That's not an injection into Chelsea club. That's 500 million in the 3.6 billion pound needed to buy the club. The problem is with this debt is that if you absorb it and the sister company takes shares, that's almost half the value of the purchase in shares, which means this sister company will own a hell of a lot of shares in this organization. Are the investors legitimately happy with that? Forget Todd Boehly and what he says publicly, because that's PR. If you're Serena Williams and Lewis Hamilton and all the other millionaires and billionaires that have pumped your money into this, they're not doing it to own a football club. Serena Williams, as an example, doesn't give a hoot about being the Chelsea owner. She cares about her money being invested in a sound investment that is going to make her money. The ironic thing in all of this is Roman Abramovich was never about making money out of Chelsea. He's invested 1.6 billion of his own money. I'm not even sure how much he bought it for. Let's say it was 400 million. I don't think it was. I think it was a lot less than that. Let's say it was. He spent £2 billion on Chelsea. If he was allowed to get all the money out of this sale and get his debt paid back, he'd be walking away with nearly £6 billion. The people buying Chelsea now, they want to own it. They want to invest in it because with TV money growing, social media sponsorship growing, ticket prices always going up over a period of time. In 10 years' time, they may be able to, they might invest, as we're looking at, nearly £4 billion of their own money in it. They might be able to sell this thing for £9 billion in a decade, 15 years' time, doubling and quadrupling. And I don't know what the word for 4 times is, as in, I know what doubling and quadrupling is, but like quadrupling would be 4 times, you idiot. Yeah, there we go. So I'm being stupid. Like certain people are going to make a lot of money out of this. The biggest point I've raised to Chelsea fans this whole time, now I never worked at the level of finance that would be overseeing a deal like this. That wasn't the level I was at. But the question I would be asking is very simple. How are the Boehly Group looking to make a return of investment for their investors? And this is why the loan should be a worry for people. If this ends up in a loan, there's 3 big things. Roman was still pumping, even under FFP, 30-odd million pound a year into the club. How do we know this? The debt grew by that amount. Secondly, owners can put about 90 million pounds over a 3-season period into the club out of their own back pocket. And he was maxing it out. They were earning tens of millions a year through the loan market, which is being taken away slowly. So you're looking at anywhere between 40 and 50 million pound a year wiped off Chelsea's income instantly. If they have to take a loan, these billionaire investors that want to make a return of investment, these millionaires, they're not paying the loan. They're not going to pay the interest. They're not going to pay the capital. They're going to make Chelsea Football Club pay it. So if you've suddenly got a loan of 1.6 billion, or the shares are owned by that company, at some point, that Roman's going to want his money back still. That sister company's going to want its money back. So at some point, you either have to take a loan out or you have to buy them out. The more money that there needs to be invested, these investors are making less money. How are they going to make their money back? They're going to look at Chelsea Football Club, buy less, pay less, absorb the money out, or they're going to roll you on the stock market, which changes things altogether. And I know Chelsea fans don't like hearing it. I know Chelsea fans don't want to hear it in any way, in any shape or in any form. They legitimately don't. It's almost like they want to call you a hater. You don't know what you're talking about. And I don't, to a degree. And do you know why I don't know what I'm talking about in terms of what's going on? Is because the right damn questions have not been asked by the fan groups, by the social media content creators, and by the journalists. No one's asking the questions. How are they making money out of this? Why do they want? Don't give me any bullshit about, we love Chelsea and I've grown up as a fan and, I want to bring the club back to the people. That's just bullshit. None of that means anything. How are you making money out of us? Take a leaf out of the, listen to Man United fans on this. This could be very, very damaging for your club being at the elite end of the spectrum. If there's this £100 million a year black hole, where are you recouping that from? How are you making that money back? Because it isn't going to, you don't have Roman, you don't have Sheikh Mansour, you don't have owners that are going to, I do not see this board, these investors chucking 30, 40, 50 million pounds a year of their own money into this football club. I don't see it in a month for Sundays. And this should be, so they're not going to go into administration. But Chelsea could be a very, very different club and prospect in the coming years. It really could.
Yeah. And that's all I really get from it. I don't know the numbers. All I see is that this is going to be completely different. When you have American owners, when you have a consortium, even when you have a consortium, you have different people that are investing into this club that don't necessarily want to put as much money in as possible because they're not full owners. Arsenal had a consortium for a very long time before the Kroenkes became full owners. Newsflash, they weren't putting in a lot of money before that, because why are they going to invest their own money into something they don't fully own just by themselves? So that in itself, just having that broken apart, will change things. Not having Roman's money will change things. Having people that are investors and not lovers of the club. They all say that they're going to spend a lot of money and they love the club. They don't. This was put on their radar by their financial experts, said, oh, you can get this club, and they turned around and made a bid. So things will be different. And that's not to say that Chelsea are going to fall into mid-table or anything like that. But like Terry said, it's the elite end of the spectrum. It's winning Champions Leagues, winning Premier Leagues, and sustaining that over a long period of time. And a lot of that Chelsea has been able to do has been sustained because of Roman Abramovich, and not having him is going to change things. And I thought it was weird when Roman first left that there was this idea that they were just going to sell and things were going to keep ticking along. One of the biggest indicators for me that things aren't going like maybe people planned, or it's not going to be business as usual, is one of your best players not re-signing with you. Rudiger, he's leaving, and he won't be the only one. And that will be an indicator of whether or not, the players and their financial experts will say, you know what, I think this is something maybe we don't want to be a part of. So there are some red flags there. Again, that's not, you're going into mid-table, you're going into administration, you're going into whatever. But it's just things are going to be different. And, Chelsea standards are high. So I do think they need to ask the right questions.
They do. And I brought this up on a number of shows. I'm still not seeing Chelsea creators really talk about this. And I don't mean that as a disrespectful thing. I understand there are certain topics that are unpopular. Why are 3 major Premier League clubs putting dossiers together and transfer programs together to try and get Mason Mount? Now, Chelsea fans say, not happening. And it may not happen. They go, see, it was nonsense. But it isn't nonsense. They're trying to do it. It tells me there are noises and sounds. There was a comment that came through that I wanted to read out. First one says, shares and day-to-day running, day-to-day decisions differ. New investment will, of course, get looked at more to the US. I totally understand that the people investing won't be running the club day-to-day. But the people investing will still sign off on financial decisions. If you're a billionaire and you're pumping 150 million pounds into this project, you are doing it to get that money back at some point in the future. Some people, it's not even philanthropy. I don't think you can class this as philanthropy. Unless there's a way of it. Some people might like giving the money in because it saves them paying tax in their respective countries or something, right? But most people are looking to get a return of investment. Taking on a new £1.6 billion debt is going to hinder the ability to make a profit. Matty here says, Terry, Newcastle's structure is exactly the same as Chelsea. PIF is like the Clear Lake Capital and Amanda Savory. Bowley runs the day-to-day operations as a minority shareholder. I hope you read this out. What I'm going to say to you, Chrissy, I like you, Chrissy. You're a good guy. But please don't believe for 1 minute, just for one whole minute, that the way Newcastle is structured is anything other than a proxy to allow the Crown Prince to own the club. If he was going to be the sole outright owner, it would have very much been rejected. That whole process was put together. All of it was put together so that it would get through the due diligence and checks process, in my opinion. And I'm not having a dig. That's just my humble belief. Otherwise, he just bought it himself. And this guy's got so much money, he could, probably barring like Apple and Tesla and a few of those companies now, because those tech guys have gone so big, this guy's got trillions of pounds. He doesn't need an investment group. The reason why Todd Bowley probably wants to own Chelsea Football Club. Todd Bowley probably wants to do this like Roman, but he ain't got the facilities for that. These guys aren't rich enough to, so they have to have a consortium behind them. Chelsea are being structured in the same way that the FSG is what you're doing. Something similar to that. That is kind of what you are doing, as an example. It's not the same as the Glazers, which is just one it isn't. It's one family, the Glazers, but the structure is the same. But it's just family that have their money in rather than outsiders putting their money into the situation. The same as the Kroenkes. But you've got to look at the Kroenkes. The Kroenkes and their family are richer than Roman Abramovich. Like they're connected to the family that own Walmart, right? They are beyond billionaires. They are multi-billionaires, right? And they don't run the club like Roman and Sheikh Mansour do. You know, the clubs, these things are just structured differently and done in a different way. They don't pump their own money in. And I don't believe that's what we're going to see. The investment company will pump their money in to buy the club. And then it's going to be Chelsea's own operation is going to sustain things. And by the way, that doesn't mean it's going to be bad, because Liverpool are going toe to toe right now.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there a chance that it goes better? Is there a chance that having this type of ownership, if done well, gives them that? Because what Chelsea have had is the ability to spend money on players and put those players together and get the right coach at the right time to win a Premier League here, win the Champions League here, but it hasn't been sustained over a period of time, like Liverpool and Man City have been able to do. Liverpool in particular, like just in this example, where they're always challenging for the title. They're always up there in the Champions League. You know, they're going to continue on with it now that FSG has gotten it right. Is there a chance that Chelsea could get in? Maybe it's not all bad. Maybe there's a way that it could be better, because as good as Roman was, because he was pumping the money in, some of the decisions that he made to just snatch managers away, do short-term things to just win things like just right then, maybe was at the cost of long-term, that long-term, sustained success. Is there a way that this could work in Chelsea's advantage, even if they're not spending 100 million on Lukaku, 100 million there, things like that?
Yes, it could. It most certainly could, if it was done, if it was done right. And they, FSG got a lot of stick in its early days because it was making mistakes, and they've got it right manager. They've got the right director of football. The processes are correct. It does take a little bit longer, though. One thing even Liverpool can't do. A lot of Liverpool spending has been more in the renewing of contracts and keeping players at the club. That's where a lot of their spend has gone. Where, Man City a lot more in the transfer fee side of things. A lot of bonus structure at Liverpool. So when they're successful, these big bonuses are paid out. It's a way of keeping the players at the club. It will be a slower process to turning things around at Chelsea when you do need to replenish the squad. They won't. For me, what Chelsea won't be able to do, in my opinion, is buy Werner at 40 million plus whatever he's on a week, 200 grand. Fail and go, right, let's spend 100 million plus 250,000 pound a week on Lukaku, and then go, right, that failed, let's go out and spend 80 million on whoever the new superstar striker is, plus 350 grand a week to bring them in. I think that level of spending will slow down, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. Chelsea fans have just got to adjust that they may just be operating in a different way. So there's both ends to that spectrum. As I say, will they go out of business? I doubt it. There's a comment here that says, Terry, do you think, from a man like Mo, do you think Roman is delaying the sale so that Radcliffe can win because Radcliffe randomly bid last minute. Well, I've seen a number of tweets and reports today that the Radcliffe thing is off the table. They're not looking at him. It's not under consideration. Have I read these? I wouldn't call them conspiracy theories that Roman wants all the current, because what I've heard is if Todd Bowley's associates pull out, they'll go to the next unsuccessful bidders and go to them. They may even, well, the Ricketts have pulled out, so they're off the table. So the Sir Martin Broughton's and the other guy whose name I forget now, I'm very sorry, they'd go to them first. But if those two groups also have issues with the loan and the equity structures and all the new conditions have only just come out in the last few weeks since the negotiations have got down to one-to-one basis, then if there's no bidders, then potentially, yes, Radcliffe could be the person. However, if what you're saying is true, and I've seen a lot of Chelsea fans kind of act like this could be the case and Roman knows best and Radcliffe would be the best owner, your owner's also gambling with your futures, because if the government were to turn around and go, well, the process was agreed to and set, and you've made it so that none of them have said yes, you're done out here. And I don't see the government doing it. At the same time, this is Boris Johnson. And would you be surprised if that bumbling buffoon was to do something like that? So Roman, if what you're saying is true, Mo, Roman is taking a gargantuan risk with the future of Chelsea Football Club. And my question to Chelsea fans is this: are you happy with him even taking that risk? That, I suppose, that is a big question.
Yeah.
Jason here says Chelsea will be bought through debt financing rather than a direct influx of money. For the investors to be interested in the long run, Chelsea will need to be turned into more revenue than debt interest. And this is very, very true. And there's two ways. Again, you boil all that down from the technical talk, and I get where you're coming from. There's two ways companies make more money. And this has been around since the start of companies. You increase the turnover or you reduce the outgoings. If you're increasing the income for a football club is actually hard, because there's only a certain amount sponsors will pay you. Only a certain amount fans will pump in. The easiest way to get a return of investment on a business is to lower the outgoings. So less on salaries, less on transfers. So a process where you are buying more 25, 30 million pound players and building them up. Maybe what Chelsea look to do is, and I look at Liverpool's model like this. Liverpool kind of it's like Dortmund on steroids. So they buy generally lots of cheaper players and then every now and then add these big stars in, less frequently than some of the other teams. But what they do is they put in these big bonus structures into the contract so that when they win the major trophies, they're paid handsomely for it. Well, what Dortmund do is they buy cheap and then they sell them on for a profit. They don't have the income as a club. They're not the size of the club to be able to maintain it. So, and I mean that with respect to both Liverpool and Dortmund. Maybe that's what Chelsea's model will now be. We'll buy for a little bit less. Every couple of years, we might, with the sale of a big player, or every couple of years, we might go, right, there's 60 million for this guy, there's 70 million for this dude. But outside of that, it's going to be, let's find the next Haaland, let's find the next Mbappe.
Yeah, exactly.
And they keep them at the club by slowly increasing the wages to the market value, rather than on day one, you're on 300 grand a week from the second you walk through the door. I just don't think Chelsea are going to be able to afford that anymore.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is that, because I know there's people in the comment section that are like, exactly, they've won 25 trophies in 25 years. I know people like to just spit out those facts. Those are facts, but let's not be obtuse and just act like we don't see what Liverpool and Man City are doing. And this is what we're talking about, not in regards to, are they more successful than Arsenal? Yes, they've been more successful than Arsenal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Chelsea at the tippy top of the pyramid, trying to compete with Man City and Liverpool, who have continued with the same manager. They haven't even spent big. They've spent a lot of money, but they haven't spent 70 million, 80 million, 100 million here. They've been able to sustain it by like buying the right players for the right manager, building the system, and selling well as well. So it's kind of like, let's not sit here and act like we don't know what we're talking about. Chelsea may end up doing better by having a system more like that. Even though Roman has given them a lot of success, the game is changing, and Liverpool and Man City are now driving that. It's no longer what Roman is doing. Let's not act like, we get that they've won 25 trophies in 20. We get that. But now Man City and Liverpool are sustaining fighting for the title every single season, being really far in the Champions League and winning other trophies. Chelsea, they do win trophies. They'll win a FA Cup here, they win the Champions League. Sometimes they win the title, but then they drop down. You know, let's not act like let's not be obtuse. Come on.
No, Chelsea's model, I would say this is their fifth. It's the longest run they've ever gone without winning the league title under Roman. I feel what's happened, and by the way, they won the Champions League last year and deserved it. FA Cup a few years before that against Man United. They're still a successful team. I'm not taking that away from them. Roman run the club. They, generally speaking, they run the club well. Always mistakes, and all these clubs make mistakes. The difference is, man, what Roman, I think, tried to start doing. I think with the likes of, Sarri, and then bringing in Tuchel, was almost to try and. I think he was trying to change. I'm going to spend big still, but I'm maybe going to employ a bit more faith in the management and try and eradicate the player power a little bit, because that I still feel Chelsea could have been even more successful if they stuck to their guns a bit with the early Jose's, the Ancelottis as an example. Bayern Munich are a great example in this list, though, from Ligue 1. Bayern Munich are a club process first. The club's way of operating comes before managers. Liverpool and City have kind of developed that even deeper with Klopp and Pep. And I almost feel like they will continue those models beyond the managers. One thing Chelsea, for me, not got wrong, but times change, is they would almost change everything for the new manager coming in, start buying him what he wanted. They'd spend big, they'd buy right. The one thing they got right at Chelsea with that conveyor belt manager approach compared to what Man United have tried to do in recent years, and Arsenal, is they set the standard high, though. It was win the title or Champions League or we sack you. Where at Man United and at Arsenal, it's been qualify for the top four and you're okay. We lower the standards at our clubs. And I think City and Liverpool have just taken that kind of Chelsea model of being able to spend a lot of money. And Liverpool do spend a lot of money, just not as much as Chelsea and City did, especially pre-FFP. But it's spending that money in a Bayern Munich type, Ajax type structure, but spending big money within it. That for me, it's perfection. And that's why I look at my club, Man United. It's what you want. You want to be run like Dortmund, like Ajax. Listen, I'm going to throw a little club in there that are run impeccably well, the way Brighton are run. If you run your clubs impeccably, but then spend big money, but you keep the structure, the culture, the attitude and behavior right, you end up like a Man United, where you win 13 league titles from the inauguration of the Premier League in 20 years. You win 13 league titles. That's how Man United was structured. We were structured brilliantly, and we spent big money. Why was Fergie more successful than Wenger? Better manager, in my opinion, but we'll debate that. But when it mattered, they just spent a little bit more. It was like, we need that slightly better striker. Let's go and do it. And that's the only thing in the Chelsea situation. They need to structure themselves better than they've ever been under Roman. They'll still spend well, but they have to get that structure. If they're structured like they were under Roman, where it's a bit willy-nilly, different philosophies for different managers, and they don't set the standards as high, they're not fucked. They're not going to get relegated, but they most certainly will not be winning Premier Leagues or Champions Leagues, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. And I look at the comment section. I'm trying to figure out where I said that Chelsea were going to be terrible, or they have been terrible. Never said that. But I'm not going to go back and say that. I don't think that Man City and Liverpool, they're setting the standards now. And Chelsea, they won the Champions League last season. I get that. But that's what Chelsea's always done. They won trophies here and there, but they can't sustain it consistently, always challenging for titles, always challenging for this. And so I'm not going to sit here and act like we all know what I'm talking about. It's true. No, Man City and Liverpool are running things now, so they'll need to change their structure if they want to keep up.
The comment here says, I don't want to be run like Ajax or Dortmund. They don't demand major trophies. I'm talking about the structure, how the club's philosophy and processes and behaviors come before any manager. But what you do on top of that is you had higher standards for winning trophies and you spend more money. You do those things, those three things together. It's when you create what Liverpool and City have got. It's pure simple for me. But listen, people, I really appreciate you all tuning into the show. Jess, brilliant as ever. Make sure you subscribe before you leave. Thank you to all my super chatters tonight. It means a great deal to us. We're live after Man City versus Real Madrid tonight, so make sure you are tuning in. Great panel lined up as well for the match reaction. But until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.